afternoon and welcome here to the session on procurement. Be a lot of hidden secrets in procurement that could really bring us closer to gender equality. When you procure anything, let's say catering or a railway or a new building, of course you think about the environmental impact. You want that the construction, the materials used, and the way the building or train tracks are used have as little impact on the environment as possible. But what if we think about gender equality? How can we procure in such a way that our policies at least not make the situation worse, but hopefully make it better? That's what we're going to discover today. My name is Roger Elshout. If you're not Dutch, stick to Roger. I'm the substitute for Katarina you find in your manual. She fell ill and last minute I stepped in for her. During this session, we also would like to have your participation, whether you're here in the room or whether you are joining us from somewhere across the continent. For that, we're gonna need you to get your phone. So take your phone or your tablet or your smartwatch from your bag, and we are going to go to, you have to go to menti.com, and can we show that on screen? Then I will do the QR code. Some people already found it. You go to menti.com and you do the code 81959242, or you take the QR code that's now appearing above my head. I think you need a pretty decent phone if it can zoom that much that it works, but this QR code will bring you to it, and else you go to menti.com 81959242. The QR code should also be shared in the chat, and also just follow the instructions you see on screen. And the first question is, if you look to the left, what do you see? And hopefully this will give us a little indication for people who are physically in the room and people who are at home, because then you probably see something different. So some people see a wall. That's probably someone who's either on that side or is at home. A library, my home office, a curtain, that must be you then. Plants, that's definitely not here. Yeah, could be. My garden, that's not here. Women, could be here. People, that's here. Okay, so we have people from both online and both on site. And we actually have to put extra chairs here, so this session is way more popular than we could ever imagine. That's a good start. Then let's see a little bit what your expertise level is. On a scale from complete newbie, I have no clue what it is, to I am the expert, I have a PhD in it. You can rank yourself on how familiar you are with gender equality, the terminology, the ideas, the systems, with the ideas of gender mainstreaming, environmentally sustainable public procurement, and then, of course, gender-responsible public procurement. And we see we have a lot of gender experts in the room. You average on an 8.4. Some people even consider themselves a 9. Gender mainstreaming is already kind of known here. Environmentally sustainable public procurement. Ooh, some people have no clue, and some people have some. But when we go to gender-responsible public procurement, even though you're gender experts, it's still as difficult as environmental procurement. So that's interesting to see. There is a lot we can learn today. Be careful if you have a phone. You have to catch this. It's a microphone. I'm going to throw it to you. Oh, sorry. It's very soft. Hello, who are you?
I'm Sanya. Hi.
Hi. What do you do?
I'm a gender expert. So I work on gender equality in different areas, including public procurement.
Including public procurement.
Yes.
What do you hope to get out of this session?
I hope to get more information about the wonderful guide that you've issued and released, and also a good discussion on how to move forward. Thank you.
We're definitely going to do that. Okay, throw the microphone to someone on your left. Okay. Careful for people eating dessert. Yeah, it's... yeah. Hi, who are you?
Hi. I'm Maria.
What do you do?
I work in procurement.
You work in procurement?
I work in procurement.
And you do that already from a gender perspective, or do you want to do that?
I'm also involved in an equality team in RDG, so I'm trying to combine the two.
Okay. Is it an easy thing to do, or is it very difficult?
Well, it's not easy because also kind of a follow-up question. I'm trying to get out of this session as well how to include gender equality, for example, in our terms of references, et cetera, and it's not easy. It's not very clear how can it be concrete and usable.
Okay, well, I'm an event professional. I sometimes procure a venue and I say, I want at least 50% of the lunch to be vegetarian. Pretty simple.
Exactly.
It's not that simple for gender?
It's not that simple, no.
Okay. But I could say I want to be 50% of the staff should be non-men?
Non-men?
Yeah?
Very... well, I mean, you need to justify it. Why? So
okay.
It needs to be very clear. You cannot just say it needs to be very clear why.
Gender equality is not as simple as a lunch. That's
exactly.
Clear. Can you throw the microphone to someone else? Oh. Hello, who are you?
Hi, I'm Katja.
A bit closer, yeah.
This is actually a microphone?
It is, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Katja. I'm working on gender equality in the European Commission. And as previous speakers, like to understand better how gender-responsive public procurement works.
Yes. And when has this session been a success? Do you want to have concrete examples, or the dilemmas, or the...
Concrete examples would be nice, actually.
Concrete examples. Well, we're going to remind all speakers to be as concrete as they can. So what are we going to do? First, I'm going to ask Helena from EIGE to give a presentation. Oh, 1 second, I'm going to first give the program. She's so eager. She's going to explain a little bit what gender-responsible public procurement could be and how it could help. After that, I'm going to ask 3 national experts to give a national perspective. What are they doing in their respective countries? 2 are here physically, 1 will be joining online. Then we want to hear your suggestions. We're going to all collect them. I'm going to explain to you how that works. Works also with the thing on your phone. We're going to get all your suggestions, and we're going to ask 2 people as a commentator to give their comments on that. Someone from the European Parliament and someone from the Commission. And hopefully, at the end of the session, we have a lot of great ideas that we're all going to collect and disseminate throughout the EU. Well, then, Helena, this is your cue. Come on stage. Helena Moraes Maitera. Oh, we should have practiced your name better. You're a researcher on gender mainstreaming and team leader at EIGE. And you lead gender mainstreaming in 3 main areas: policy support, development of gender mainstreaming tools and methods, and your statistics database, and now procurement. When we saw what people said as how their level of expertise, there were a 4.5 on gender responsive public procurement. That's better or less than you hoped?
Well, what it shows is that we are bringing and building the momentum for GRPP. So thank you very much for being here. Good afternoon. And we are looking forward to, indeed, increase this 4.5% towards the end of the session. That's our main objective.
Okay. You are going to give us a crash course in how it works. I would say, take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I have my slides,
please?
Yeah,
I lost my phone somewhere. Here it is.
Okay, first slide, please. Okay. Exactly. Yes. Thank you again for being here. I will start by asking what are these 4 letters that actually can help us increase support to gender equality and use or unlock the potential of around 14% of the EU GDP to support or to accelerate our drive towards gender equality. GRPP, Gender Responsive Public Procurement, are these 4 letters, and GRPP in short means public contracts, public procurement that is designed and delivered in a way that reduces gender inequalities. It all starts by asking ourselves, do the services, the supplies, the works that I intend to buy have different implications for women and men? Do they, in all their diversity, women and men in all their diversity, have different needs in relation to these services. Which social and labor laws, agreements, measures that are relevant from a gender equality perspective or that promote gender equality are applicable to my contract? Next, please. So this is about gender-responsive public procurement and how spread is gender-responsive public procurement in the EU. Well, the strategic use of public procurement to advance gender equality remains extremely low in the European Union. And this applies as well for countries that score highly in EIGE's Gender Equality Index. So that's a novelty. EIGE's data shows that only 10 member states have established laws or policies at the national level related to GRPP. Our data also shows that only 11 member states have implemented some type of gender-responsive public procurement measure to promote awareness amongst buyers or sellers of public procurement. No single GRPP action has been found in 12 member states. Countering the trend, we have Spain, who has taken the lead in implementing gender-responsive public procurement at all levels of the administration, national, regional, and local, as well as Belgium, France, and then at regional level, Germany and Austria. Shortly, we will hear examples from these member states who will be sharing with us their experience. Next slide, please. No?
The question first?
No?
This
A bit
one.
later? Okay, thank you. Why GRPP? Why gender-responsive public procurement? Well, GRPP can help us raise the number of women in the workforce and create gender balance in sectors where there is a high degree of gender segregation. And this includes as well those in which men are underrepresented. And GRPP can help us bring more equal pay equality. It can also help improving working conditions and work-life balance and the sharing of care responsibilities between women and men. GRPP can help achieve gender balance of the service providers of teams. And that's, I connect with the first intervention who said you need to justify. Exactly. If we justify by connecting with the specific service, with the specific contract that we sign, acknowledging the gender relevance and connecting with the subject matter of the contract, so then yes, GRPP can help us achieve gender balance of the team who would be providing the services. Not less important, GRPP can also help to prevent sexual harassment at work. How? Next slide, please. Oh, no, previous one, yeah, sorry. And now we hear a lot of questions around the how to do it. We will come back to the specific examples shortly, in a moment, but I want to tell you that EIGE has just published a comprehensive package of resources that can help authorities in the EU spend public money in a way that benefits women and men equally and improve efficiency in public spending. And that's another key message here. This includes a step-by-step toolkit that gives practical guidance on how to include the gender perspective in every step of the public procurement process, starting by looking into the pre-procurement, the procurement phase, and the post-procurement phase, which has to do with the implementation of the contract, follow-up, monitoring, and evaluation of the contract. We have also published, and it's ready to support you, a report presenting the legal case, a legal case on GRPP, the state of art of GRPP in the European Union, and 11 case studies featuring good practices, together with policies as well. EIGE has also recently published and has available data. So data, statistics that make things visible and reveals, in the case of GRPP, the untapped potential for GRPP in the European Union. In addition, and that's also a message that I want to share with you, EIGE has joined forces with URBACT, and URBACT has used our resources, our toolkit, to create training modules on GRPP for the European towns and cities to help them implement GRPP at local level. We now go to the question, Roger.
Well, the answers are coming in. We ask you in public contracts, who are the groups that benefit? And it's those involved in the production or the delivery, or the users or beneficiaries. And a near 100% believes it's both. Are they correct?
Okay.
Show the correct answer. Yes, they are correct. So this is
exactly. I see that indeed there are no doubts. And you are all correct, those joining online and those in the room. Indeed, exactly. And this is maybe the first message when we start looking at a public contract, so when we have a public procurement procedure and we need to assess the gender relevance, because only by grabbing this gender relevance, then the next specific measures would follow. So indeed, from the perspective of the gender relevance, it is important to consider that both the ultimate beneficiaries of a contract, but also those involved in the production, in the delivery of the services that we are contracting, are impacted and are relevant from a gender equality perspective. So they are impacted, they are the direct impact of any GRPP measure. But in addition, gender-responsive public procurement can generate spillover effects that benefit the whole society. For example, macroeconomic impacts of increasing labor market participation of women or increasing men's participation in care. But not only. Another type of impacts or spillover effects that we need to consider when looking at GRPP are, for example, climate change impacts. I'll give you an example. Transport. A transport contract which is designed and delivered from a gender equality perspective would reveal that transport habits and choices are gendered, and therefore the impact that those transport habits have, for example, in carbon emissions, need to be considered from a gender equality perspective. And here I'm talking about something so simple as the use of private cars, for example, or the use of public transports. So this also means that GRPP should and must be delivered together with green procurement and other types of social responsible public procurement. They need to talk to each other, and it's important that they are implemented all together. So all these that I just mentioned makes GRPP key to fair and efficient public spending in the EU. We would like to ask you to connect with us, to use our tools, and to join us, to start preaching and implementing GRPP now. Thank you very much.
Wow. Yeah. The benefits are clear,
exactly.
But inflation is soaring, my taxes are going up. Is it also more expensive?
No, it's not more expensive. We know that it's not more expensive, but yes, it needs dedicated resources. So it's very important here that public procurement officers and gender equality bodies, gender equality experts talk to each other and jointly deliver GRPP. we will hear this when we jump into the
So for the same money, we get better services and create both for the users and the deliverers a better world.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds very promising. Let's hear how that works in practice. We're going to see you back because you are going to select the most the suggestions from the audience we need to talk about.
Looking forward.
Thank you very much. We're going to see you back. An applause for Helena. Okay then, well, let's hear it, how it works in the different member states. I'm going to go forward from Belgium, Jeroen de Kuiper, from Sweden, Anna Collins-Falk, and joining us online from Spain, Vanessa Aventin Fontana. Welcome, join us. It's a big step, but yeah. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Jeroen de Kuiper, you're the Strategy and Policy Coordinator for the Belgian Institute for the Equality of Men and Women. What does Belgium do to procure in a gender-positive way?
So I think, I think Helena already explained it very much. I think in Belgium we noticed that GRPP didn't get as much attention as the fight against violence or promoting gender on the labor market. But we really found that it can also be a tool to contribute to gender equality, just as much as those two important topics. So we really thought about, okay, we need to convince policymakers that by ensuring that all the demands that they outsource, that they are gendered, and that they promote gender equality. Because we are really convinced that that leads to better services and better public policies because everything will be more aligned to the needs of both women and men. But furthermore, also by doing this, it also has a benefit of making policies and services more efficient because you will just take into account your target audience better. And you will avoid unintended exclusion of one of the genders. So by analyzing all this, we thought, okay, now we need to convince people that they need to do GRPP. And in Belgium, we undertook several steps to do this. And the first and maybe not easiest, but the most obvious one was to make it a legal obligation. And this was mentioned in the session this morning as well. You know, legal obligations, they work. So in our federal law on gender mainstreaming, there's a specific clause that says that all public procurements have to integrate the gender perspective. So it's not because it's a legal obligation that people actually know how to do GRPP. So that was our next step. And so we developed a manual and a checklist on that subject. And also, like the tool from EIGE as well, I think, we really tried to develop those tools in a way that really is very close to the way people work on public procurement contracts. We really try to identify which phases are there in a public procurement process and what you can do for each of these phases. So, for example, when you are determining the attribution criteria, which is really the center of a public procurement specifications, where you are saying, okay, these are the things that I will evaluate and give points to, there are some ways you can integrate gender in that. And so we explain that in our manual and in our checklist, trying to give also some concrete examples. And just to finish off maybe, what was also very important for us was that we're not only talking about who is executing or performing the contract. That's a very important part. But in Belgium, we find it very important as well that the content of the contract is gender sensitive. That when you are procuring a study, that you ask the researchers that are doing the study that they take into account the gender perspective. So that was as well, that's why our tools are divided in two parts and they work on that.
And you mentioned a checklist. Then I'm thinking if you give civil servants a checklist, that is a recipe for disaster. I am now trying to get a building permit for to make my house more green, and they go around the checklist and no, 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 and I have to build the most weird house, almost a Belgian house. Then it's according to the checklist, not according to what we try to achieve. How does your checklist help to work on the purpose and not on just the checkings?
Yes, so we really try to give concrete elements and really provide standard phrases, for example, that they can use. Of course, it will each time have to be adapted to the concrete contract, but really by trying to be as concrete as possible and really and provide assistance as well. So we're also giving trainings. I've been giving trainings the last 3 years on this. This month, as well, I gave 2 trainings, of course, one in French, one in Dutch, for in total around 100 people. So we see that interest is increasing for this topic, but people realize that just with a manual and a checklist, it's an interesting tool, but they come to the sessions to really get an explanation, to ask questions, etc.
Do people in general see it as a helpful tool for better procurement or an annoying extra layer of red tape?
I think in the beginning they see it as an annoying layer of red tape, but at the end of the trainings, we've had some very positive feedback of people saying, okay, now I actually understand what it's about and what we can do, and that we just need to see for our own concrete work what is possible, what can we do, and how can we well, promote gender equality, and of course the efficiency argument and the argument that your procurement for the same amount of money you will get more. For procurement people, that is also
that's the holy grail.
Very convinced.
We want to hear. Okay, I see Anna here nodding. We're first going to go to Vanessa in Spain. You're the Deputy General Director of Governance and Coordination of Public Procurement at the Spanish Ministry of Finance and Public Administration. Hi, welcome, and thanks for joining us. Yeah, how do you procure in Spain? We have a little trouble with the sound. I see technicians sweating now. They're trying to fix it. Keep talking. No,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Hi.
Excellent. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the European Institute for Gender Equality for inviting me to join this 2022 Gender Equality Forum. It is a pleasure and an opportunity to share with you experiences on this respect. As you said, I am coming on behalf of the Ministry of Finance from Spain, and we are responsible here for the legal framework on public procurement, and also we are responsible for the interpretation of the law. We do not deal directly with gender equality, but we do try to lay a proper legal framework that enables public procurement entities to do successful gender-responsive public procurement. If you enable me, I will give just a very brief summary on what we've been doing in Spain on this respect. Generally speaking, we ended up with the transposition of EU directives in 2017 and finally on 2020. And during the processing of our public procurement acts, we always had very much we took very much into account gender equality perspective. Our public procurement acts provide contracting entities with different tools to enable socially responsible public procurement, providing them with legal basis to introduce technical specifications and address social considerations such as gender equality, selection criteria, award criteria, and performance conditions as well, among all other tools. But if you ask me what are we doing that goes beyond the EU directives, that perhaps is leading us to foster gender responsive public procurement beyond as well, I can give 2 examples. I want to highlight that we have an exclusion ground that bans companies that are not complying with the legal obligation to have a plan, an equality corporate plan, well, they are banned to go into public procurement if they do not comply with this obligation. I'm talking about companies that have more than 50 employees. And secondly, also another example is that we have put into place the obligation to introduce in every contract, in every public contract, execution obligation or condition that takes into account a social consideration that could, of course, be gender consideration, gender equality, I mean. This having been said, the Spanish approach to transposition was ambitious in terms of socially responsible public procurement, and as a result, to some extent, our legal framework goes beyond, as I said. I want to end this brief summary just pointing out some data we've been able to collect in the Ministry of Finance. In 2021, we collected gender equality performance conditions corresponding to those public contracts that are being published in the Central Public Procurement Platform, which represent about 60% of the total public procurement in Spain. Because 7 autonomous communities have their own public procurement platform, so they are not comprised within this data. In any case, this being said, in 2021, 4,950 public contracts included a gender equality performance condition. These public procurement proceedings represented nearly 8,000 million euros. In percentage, we estimate that these contracts represent 6% of all the public contracts published in the public procurement platform and 8% in terms of value. I want to highlight the point that these data are being collected through optional fields in our public procurement platform. So this means that these figures do not necessarily comprise all the public contracts that had these gender equality clauses as performance clauses within their clause. Thank you very much. And this is my brief summary, and I give back the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and an impressive number that you're sharing. What would you say is the key to success? Is it every procurement is so different, and every field or product or service you want is so different? So it's about awareness and then tailor-make some solutions, or there are a few quick wins that work on basically any case, just do those?
I think that we need to go on a case-by-case basis. This is the EIGE's rulings are telling us that. And I think EU directives set up requirements and principles, like the principle that the subject matter of the contract has to be linked to the condition. And these requirements oblige us to go on a case-by-case basis. This is the difficulty. This is the main constraint, I would say. So it is really, we need to be very much close to the contracting entities to assess them in every little case. It's very difficult to go to a general formula, I'm afraid.
Yes. And would you say it's best to tell the contractor what to do because you're the expert, or ask them what would you propose yourself to do because they are the expert?
We need to work in a multidisciplinary team with gender experts and legal experts. I'm afraid I'm not a gender expert, but I try to be a legal expert on public procurement 14 years.
The international coordinator and advisor at the Swedish Gender Equality Agency. How is it going in Sweden?
Well, as you heard earlier on, even countries that lead or are very high on the Gender Equality Index have not achieved great success in this field. So admittedly, we are facing challenges, but on the other hand, we're moving along in some areas. So it's a mixed bag, and I recognized a lot of the challenges, but also the successes that have been mentioned here today. We've come a long way in that, in the past, loading up public procurement with anything else than the bare minimum was quite contentious. We've gone beyond that, hopefully. There's still, proponents of the minimalist approach. But we do have a national agency for public procurement, which was founded in 2015, so that's relatively new. But it has the specific aim of strengthening the strategic importance of public procurement. So there are actually tasks also with sustainability issues. And the new national procurement strategy highlights sustainability and benefits at societal levels. And that's where the social sustainability issue or gender equality comes in as an opportunity. They have also worked very closely with the Swedish Association for Local Authorities and Regions, SALAR, and developed guidelines and checklists. Here we go again, guidelines and checklists. But the feedback we're getting from the local level is that they're very, very useful. And on top of that, we see gender-responsive public procurement as part of gender mainstreaming and a gender-responsive budgeting. So our agency, the Swedish Gender Equality Agency, we also work with these government entities on gender mainstreaming. As part of that, we're increasing the understanding of the impact it can have, and also the importance of having sex-disaggregated data, but also to look at the end result you're achieving. So some of the things that are coming out of these experiences are that procurement people are not gender experts. And gender experts, we don't always understand. We don't understand the nitty-gritty of procurement and the laws. So we don't have a specific law, but we have a strategy. And we have all these tools to help. So it is very much still at the level of spreading awareness that this is a great opportunity. And that's what we're doing from our side, from the gender equality side, saying this makes a lot of sense. A public procurement in Sweden, I got the figures, they were from last year, but are the equivalent about a fifth of our GDP. So, this is a lot of taxpayers' money, and we want to make it possible to deliver on the societal goals on our policies in Sweden. So we see initiatives happening at local level in municipalities, where some of them have also signed on to this CEMR, where they use that, and they are using and training their people. They are following through. But important steps that they have is the kind of dialogue with the industry that's involved, and that they actually spend a lot of time on analysis. What really makes sense here? What are the relevant issues? Because we often hear things like, when we need to procure, there's so many perspectives. We're crowded by a child rights perspective and an environmental climate change perspective, and now this is gender equality. And if we're going to put all of this in, to satisfy everybody, we don't know. But when they actually do that proper analysis and have that dialogue with those who are informed, they have found that they have better knowledge of they have a broader kind of uptake of service providers. And they can also it's also important because they can get a feel for how are they progressing on gender equality. So it's not a limitator, it's an enabler. Yeah, so it is very much an enabler. So when I start to say we haven't come that far, I think this is slow progress. They have to go step by step, and it increases the knowledge and awareness of what the issues are at local level, and it pushes it as well. So that's the feedback that we're getting. Some people ask me, let's make it as concrete as possible. So let's say we're going to procure a building. Of course, I'm going to demand the truck that delivers the bricks is zero emission, has a battery, not no diesel. That's simple. But now I want to put gender in it.
And I know the construction people, they want more women in it, so they're probably have motivation. That's good. What do I do?
Well, that's when you go when you first have to do your analysis, your gender analysis. You have to understand what are the gender issues in that particular field. And one of the best ways of doing that is asking those who will be affected by it, impacted by it, or who have a stake in it, apart from the gender experts.
Well, there are people who build the building and people who use the building.
Yeah, so you have to have both those who provide it. But in that case, you also have to then take it step by step in the different phases. So if you include those criteria from your analysis into the process, then into your procurement process, and then you have to weight it and develop. How do you weight the different ones? What are the requirements, and what are the things that would be beneficial? So if you understand where you're going to go at the level of outcome at the beginning, it's the same way as we do gender mainstream. You say where you want to reach, not just the activity.
Again, if I understand, the better insulated the building, the less energy it consumes, better for the environment. But do people who identify as men use a building in a different way than people who do not?
Well, it depends. A building itself, or what's the question?
Well, if you procure, let's say, a building or a service, I understand the environmental relation is very simple. It's one step, and it's better or worse. But the gender aspects, I already have difficulties imagining how men or women use a building or a service different and how they are impacted.
Well, now I have to do a quick gender analysis of a building. It's not only the construction. Let me just say.
It's an example I give in the trainings. For example, for buildings, we see, and it's because there was a very nice cartoon that was developed for a contest from the UN Women, where you see a man with a baby looking at the toilets, where you see the sign for the women plus changing table for the baby, and then you see the sign for the man, where there's no room for changing the baby. And that's one of the things that you have to analyze, that okay, where not only women will want to change their child, so you need to make sure that in the toilets for men, there's a changing table for babies as well. And that's one of the examples as well. If you have to try to rectify that afterwards, it costs extra money. You need to install a table, maybe you need to even break out some walls, or maybe it's just not possible. Well, if from the conception of your building, you ask, okay, you need to make sure that all gender aspects are taken into account, for example, that one, it's a benefit for gender equality, but as well for your cost, because you don't have to rectify it afterwards.
Okay, it's getting clear.
Just one more thing that you could even see, that if you're procuring companies, what are those companies? What are they including men or women, or the women-led companies that are going to construct them? And then how you're going to use it as well, in what way they'll benefit.
And probably if more women, if it's a gender balance in the constructing company, someone is going to think, oh, we need a...
But it could be socially inclusive.
Okay, I want to hear some reactions. So from you, maybe you have good examples, like the very concrete things that, like, that makes a difference. If you have one, raise your hand. I definitely also want to hear from Päivi Valkama. You're from DG Reform, and you're working on the flagship project. Ooh, I'm going to get the microphone to you. What are you working on?
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yes, I'm very excited to be first time attending this forum. Thanks a lot. And thanks for Helena for introducing this interesting aspect of gender responsive procurement to us. And I wanted to take a couple of minutes to introduce something we feel is quite groundbreaking. My name is Päivi Valkama. I'm from the European Commission, a new DG called DG Reform. Talking to Agnes here, sitting next to me earlier, I realized that maybe I need to say a little bit about what is DG Reform, because she hadn't heard about it. So we are a rather new DG. We work based on requests from the member states on projects that they wish to get Commission help on getting structural change in their economies. And I'm here joined with Maria, which goes to show that we have a very active equality team in DG Reform, and we are working together with EIGE on this flagship project. We have done a lot of equality work in DG Reform already, and I'm responsible for budgeting projects, and for example, green and gender budgeting are very much in fashion in a lot of member states, not only Sweden, but also many others. And the project that I want to mention here today is financed with our 2022 budget, and it's one of our biggest projects in DG Reform. It's from an instrument, EU instrument called the Technical Support Instrument.
And if you would give the 1-minute summary of what the project does, what would it be?
It is a gender mainstreaming in public policy and budgeting, and it includes 9 beneficiaries in 7 countries. And EIGE is supervising that we're doing the right things. Expertise France is providing it. And we have a European University Institute helping us with the academic side. And what we think, many people in the first panel in the main session here today were saying that we're doing the same things over and over again. And in this, the idea of our flagship projects, and this one in particular having to do with equality, is to mix things up a little bit. So what we want to do is work with several countries, work with several levels of administrations. We have national, regional, local. We want to throw into the mix not just the equality ministries, but also the ministries of finance and the ministries of justice to get sustainability in the results. And we work, each of our participants, which are Ireland, Italy, Greece, Romania, Germany, and Portugal. And by the way, we have Aurora here from our Romanian beneficiary. And we have Katja from DG Just, who is responsible for the whole idea of the gender flagship. So we're strongly represented here.
Wow.
So the idea is to each of them have their own projects, then we work together, we visit each other, and we even have a new kind of instrument. We have Erasmus for civil servants.
Okay, and it's scientifically backed. There's EIGE behind it. And where should I look to if I want to know more?
Just write to me.
We're all gonna.
Oh, Helena.
Okay, during the coffee break, a lot of people are gonna ask you something. Yeah. We have a comment or question from the. Yeah, I'll try better this time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's working. So I would like to share an example that is outside of the EU, but I think it's still relevant. It's very specific. Gender-responsive budgeting is mandatory in the Republic of Serbia. As part of it, the Agency for Public Procurement also had to do a gender-responsive budget objective, and so they decided, because they have limited capacities still for public procurement, and then gender, you know, it's sort of tricky. So first of all, they included a definition of what constitutes women's entrepreneurship in the law, which was very important because we didn't have one before. And so now they're tracking how many women-owned companies are applicants by size of procurement, and also encouraging participation of women-owned companies. And they're also doing a review of public procurement conditions, because before they would require a very high standard, very high level, and women-owned enterprises wouldn't pass the threshold because, for instance, they had lower volume, and they had also fewer procurements for the public sector. So now they're eliminating, where possible, these too high criteria, or sometimes, you know, it was required to have a double or a triple amount of what is required as a guarantee of management capacity, which really wasn't necessary. And all this is just a start, obviously. We have in the law also that all capital investment should have an ex-ante gender analysis.
I also hear your advice is, if your resources are limited,
yeah, start with something small and specific, and then, because you have to get them on board as well.
Yes, and also as you get a lot of more companies with innovative ideas to be able to procure. Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna make this. Ooh, sorry, almost made it. Hello. Oh. That's a very expensive thing, yeah. I'm gonna come to you with a microphone. Hi.
Did you break it?
Yeah, I think I broke it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hi, Mary Collins from the European Women's Lobby. Just a very simple question, actually. If there was systematic gender budgeting, which is about ensuring that our public money is spent in a way that benefits everybody, would public procurement be much easier?
Ooh, so we already heard it's not necessarily more expensive. Would it also be easier?
Well, that's, if I may answer it, I don't know if I have the answer, but definitely that's how we see it. In our work with the Swedish Gender Equality Agency, we work very closely on gender mainstreaming with the Swedish National Financial Management Authority, and this that we call gender mainstreaming in government agencies, the next kind of phase of that, which has focused a lot on gender-responsive budgeting. It's very clear that you know, if you progress to that level, you do lay the foundations of it. You can't just have the policies without the money, and then you have to actually use that money to deliver the services. But again, you have to have the evidence behind it, you have to have the capacity to implement it, but you have to be able to follow through on it. You have to, now of course I come from the Department of Policy Analysis, so I'm always saying, look, you have to monitor what you're actually achieving, and then you know, make changes to that. And I think that's a lot to ask to begin with. So small incremental steps where that learning is built in. But I mean, ultimately, yes, gender responsive budgeting is what will lay the foundation for it. Yeah.
We'll make it better. Okay, thank you so much. Jeroen de Kuiper, Vanessa Avendin-Fontana, and Anna Collins-Falk. Thank you so much. Yeah, and in the last 15 minutes, we want to collect from you your suggestions on how we can get there. So what should we do to make this more mainstream, to make the mainstream more mainstream? For this, you're going to use your phone again. If you, on the question that we have, if you scroll down, you see the Ask a Question button. If you hit that and you submit a question, you don't do a question, but do a suggestion. And hit a suggestion, and then you can also see on your phone the suggestions from other people. If you see one that you really like, press thumb up, and it goes up. If you see someone, and check first if there's a duplicate. And maybe take a minute to discuss with your neighbor what you want to propose. So take 1 minute for that, and also that goes also for the people at home. Take a minute to discuss with your neighbor what would be your suggestion. And then use the Q&A function. The QR code again, yes. The QR code again is here. So it's menti.com and then 81959242. 81959242. Okay, so the people. Yeah, but the slide doesn't really matter. You have to hit the Ask a Question button. Open Q&A, yeah. If you hit Open Q&A, that's where you can propose suggestions. And this is also, of course, for the people at home. Probably, yeah, you took a minute to think about it, and then you can submit your suggestions here. I'm gonna see, the first one is coming in. Okay, well, while you start typing, I'm going to ask our speakers, our commentators. There's our Alexandra Gies and Anna Lupi. Please join us. You did coordinate your outfit. Hi, welcome. Glad that you join us. Alexandra Gies, you're a member of the European Parliament. You, for the Green fraction, for your work focus both on justice and on gender and also on artificial intelligence and the digital transformation. And you are responsible for the Digital Service Act within the Greens EFA parliamentary group. How important is the topic of gender-responsive public procurement?
It's absolute. Is this working?
Yeah, it's going to work.
It's totally important. It's really very, very important, and we do need to drum up the political will to get this in place really high up. And I was quite happy before when the person from the Commission spoke from DG Reform about the technical support instrument, because I was actually the rapporteur who put the gender budgeting and the gender responsive public procurement into that instrument as a legal basis. And what we are seeing is that we do have some progress on civil rights, on equality, on rights for women. But when it comes to the economic sphere, it is still considered neutral, and it's still considered actually a man's world. I worked a lot on the recovery and resilience facility, so 750 billion that the EU is investing into member states to overcome the COVID crisis. And I said at the beginning, well, the way it is set up, probably 60%, more than 60% of the funds in order to do the care work, they should be supported. And now, we did a huge campaign that worked in some countries. We had a very good position in the European Parliament on having a mandatory gender impact assessment on the national plans for those investment. And gender responsive public procurement would have been an instrument in order to achieve that equality goal within those investment plans. And in the end, in trilogues, so negotiating with the Commission and with the member states, we lost that part. And now we're doing impact assessment on specific member states and how this money is being spent. And we looked at Italy, Spain, and Germany, and we are seeing that 80% of that money goes into male employment.
And is this something that can be legislated? Or if there's no real will to achieve this, it becomes just red tape and people try to circumvent it?
Well, exactly, that's the problem. If it's just up to cities to do it, some cities can do it with a favorable political climate and others just won't do it, or smaller municipalities just simply won't do it. Or they will just do it for specific aspects like care work or libraries. When I go around to cities, they say, well, we have a great program. And then they tell me, well, we are counting how many people of which gender are using the libraries. And anybody who has ever set a foot in a public library knows that's women. Women with their children, women taking out books for the whole family, and so on. So where we need to really go is where it hurts. And that's digital, for example, that's transport. And that is where it makes a difference. And it's not only good for the women, it's good for everybody, because in digital, we know we're lagging behind globally. And the reason we're lagging behind is because we don't get enough people into the sector. We don't get enough talent. Because it's almost only men. 80% of the people studying these matters and working in these companies, 80 to 90% are men. It's not considered particularly attractive for women. The few women that go into the sector usually run away after a few years because the working environment is so bad for women. And there, if, public authorities do a lot of tenders on digital services, software for public administration. It's a big chunk. And if we had gender-responsive public procurement there, we would have give a chance to smaller enterprises that might have easier increase their share of women. And it would be a really big incentive for those companies to promote women, to look for women, to try to get women in, to combat the sexism into their own in their own companies, in order to make the women stay and in order to make them have a career. That would be a really strong incentive, and that way we would overcome the talent issue in the digital sector, because more people would go into that sector, especially more women, and it's a win-win situation.
So even if they don't have the initial interest to do it, they might see the benefits of it because it's going to benefit them.
Exactly.
Okay. Anna Lupi, you're from the Legal and Policy Officer at DG GROW at European Commission. Yeah, I think it's on. You're in charge of the Commission's policy on sustainable public procurement. Yeah. Should we have big expectations from that?
Well, we should, because I think what we try to do is extremely important, in that we are really trying to change a little bit the culture behind procurement, which is often a culture of legal compliance and saving on spending. And I mean, obviously, it's very important for our administrations to have very efficient finances. But really, public procurement is there to serve a community of citizens in the best way possible. So the focus should rather be on how you do procurement to serve the community's goals and to serve the citizens rather than on how much you spend, let's say.
And I hear a little bit on the one hand, so we have the gender aspect, we have the environmental aspects and social impact, we have a lot of things, so we ask more from companies we want to procure something from. On the other hand, one of the biggest things you can do is make it simpler so that also smaller companies who are not owned by 50-year-old white men, but also younger people, women, people of color, that they can also apply. How do you balance the stacking of demands while at the same time make it easier for those who are not?
It's challenging. And I mean, when I say it's challenging for public authorities also to deal with these different demands. I think someone before me mentioned the difficulty that public authorities have with the crowding of all these objectives. What is the priority, to take care of the environment or to look at social goals? The easy answer to that is all of that, of course, but you cannot always do everything, and it's the same for companies. It's very challenging to deal with all these demands. So probably the best way would be to have a constant engagement between public authorities and the market and enterprises to understand better who can deliver what, and how much, it's important also to have diversity in your pool of suppliers and to be as inclusive as possible.
Does it also mean that the Commission, where they're also controlling the market, sometimes have to be less focused on the free and open market and more on give leniency to public authorities to choose what fits their goals best?
Absolutely. I mean, it's really what we are doing here when I say also we need to change the mentality of public authorities is also to shift a little bit the balance of what they do in procurement from pure competition to a more collaborative attitude, and also towards an approach where you do procurement also to support your policy goals.
Okay, Helena, because we have a few minutes left, here there are quite some things coming in, and we see one already has 9 upvotes. We're going to ask you read out the most upvoted comments from the audience, and then we'll ask our commentators to give some comments on that. What is the most upvoted suggestion?
Okay, so we have 9 votes.
Oh yeah, I will remove the QR code.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The suggestion is monitoring and sanctions for non-compliance. Then with 8 votes, we have, okay, let me.
Yeah, it's a non-touch screen, that's the secret. Yeah, you have to use the mouse. Yeah, we changed laptops last minute.
Yeah. All right. Its legal measures are effective, but have to be combined with other measures, such as training, in order to achieve the best outcome. And then, they are very close. Number 7, or with 7 votes, sorry, is can we agree on a minimum standard to reach over the medium term?
Okay, so what the first 2, it means so we have to have standards, we have to have legislation, we have to monitoring, we have to have sanctions, and we have to change the culture, so training and awakening that desire in people. If it isn't a broad policy, it's not going to work. Is that a fair conclusion?
I think it is, absolutely. I mean, I can see there are the experts in the room who know what counts, not only having a legislation in place, but also implementing it, doing the training, really helping the people who have to implement it, because they're not experts for all of the areas, who's in it. As somebody said before me, the gender equality experts are probably not the procurement experts, so working together, that's absolutely important. And I think it's training in both directions, and that is important to really working on this together. And minimum standards, I mean, that is about legislation. So I think this is something we should be working on. I'm looking forward to all the great examples. May I comment just briefly on the question you asked before? What is more important? Is it social? Is it gender equality? Is it environmental? It's so much stuff, you know, you need to take into account. One thing we learned from gender budgeting, that these goals often go in the same direction, or they go together. One of my favorite examples from gender budgeting is from Rome. The city of Rome at a certain point built a metro line, a subway line to a poor suburb. And after that metro line was finished, the year later, the employment rate of the women that had been very low skyrocketed.
But also people said, we want to give new people on the market a fair chance. So I give a party and I have my catering needs to be vegan and sustainable and all these things. And then of course, a big restaurant, they can deliver. But a single woman who just started her own company is a one-person company. I give her this whole file of, if you want to cater my party, you have to do all these things. I'm not making it easier.
Well, but very often women who start companies take sustainability criteria into account. So maybe the woman-led company that caters also has, I don't know, bicycles in order to deliver, and therefore she also meets the sustainable criteria. That's very often, especially when you look at startup companies. That's very, very clear that women invest a lot more into companies that also have social goals, that have environmental goals. So that would really go in the right direction, probably.
It is. Okay. Do we have more suggestions from the audience also that we maybe didn't make the top 3, but are still?
Yeah, well, I see that we are still getting some votes. There is another one which is relevant. It's distribute. Yeah, now you see it, distribute real existing examples of specifications that take into account gender equality.
Simple, quick wins, things that you can implement. Yeah, okay, very good one. And maybe one more, maybe also a controversial one.
Yeah, let's go with another one. This is a question, and maybe we can address it to one of our commentators. Should the aim to be to reshape public procurement from scratch, rather than creating another stream of GRPP and risk working in silos?
With 3 minutes on the clock, we get the most philosophical question of the...
I don't think you need to reshape public procurement from scratch. I think the basics are already there, and I do agree, however, that GRPP, we need to look at gender equality issues in procurement. Would be detrimental to any of the social goals that we are treating, to look at them in isolation.
But in a way, I work for the European Commission sometimes. Their internal guidelines say whatever your services can be nice, we select on price and solely price. That's the foundation of the procurement process, and maybe some things like sustainability are nice on top of it. Shouldn't we completely reverse it and start with what is the purpose, and in the end, come up with a price for that?
That's possible. I mean, you can already do that to a certain extent. I think what needs to be changed is really this extreme focus on it has to be competitive, and you have to take equal treatment to the direst financial consequences. Equal treatment is not just about a price that is as low as possible and it's as transparent as possible, but it's also about offering equal treatment towards your beneficiaries, towards your workers. So it's a much more complex concept than just clinging to the figures of what you're purchasing in the end.
Alexander Gies, that we need legislation, is that because the market has failed or because we're making progress? Is it a shame that we need legislation, or is it a good thing?
Well, it is a shame, but we are coming from centuries of inequality, and at times you really need to give a push to people to really set a strong incentive. I mean, that's a problem we have all over the gender equality issue, that we do need legislation, and legislation helps us to progress.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and I hope both of you on both sides of the legislative process do the utmost best to get this done. Thank you so much. Ja, Helene. We can do it. There are good examples.
Exactly.
We need a broad package of cultural interventions, financial interventions, scientific interventions. Can EIGE support on all these matters?
What is our director?
She ran away for this, yeah.
She ran away for that. Well, as I said before, we are researching, we're providing data tools and partnering with others to support member states and the EU institutions in moving forward with GRPP. Okay. So we are behind.
Wonderful. And we heard there are some procurement professionals in the room, there are some gender professionals in the room. From now on, we're all gender and procurement professionals.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes our session. You have 15 minutes to get yourself a coffee, a toilet break, and find your next room. Thank you very much.